This week you will be making some refined drawings of designs from your geometric and organic lines and shapes project in marker, on tracing paper, or on sketchbook paper. It's a good idea if you get a hold of some blue painter's tape this week so you can tape down your tracing paper so that it stays in place when you're making your copies. So you're going to start with a ruler and a pencil, and I have already begun these drawings just to save some time. And you're going to mark out your square to begin with. That's your first step. With your geometric designs, it's going to be quite easy to line up and draw along that straight edge. And once you get everything drawn in, then you're going to approach it with a marker. Now, before I go forward, pencils smear and markers smear. So because this drawing is supposed to be cleaner than your initial sketchbook drawings, lay down a sheet of paper that's clean over the top of it where you're dragging your hand so that you're not dragging lead and marker all over your page. You can use just the plain old Sharpie, ultra fine tip. Mine is dead, unfortunately, so I'm going to use another marker I have laying around. But initially I drew all of this in pencil. It might be a mental thing for me. I like to see the pencil mark already down so I have a cleaner guide in front of me. And then again, laying my ruler down and making the mark. Something else that can happen, and it happened to me earlier right here, is that marker may get on your ruler. So you might want to keep a paper towel next to you to wipe it off so that you're not smudging. It takes a little while for it to dry, so you might want to wait a second before you go moving on to the next thing. This will be a timely process. Now, I made some small letter B's in the negative spaces of my design to tell me where I want to fill in with black. Good idea to give yourself those guides. I have been more than midway through a project and put marker down where I didn't want it. So, just for good measure. You may use again, back to the Sharpie, if you've got this double tip, the fine tip to do some larger filling of space. I have, and if you're having to be out and you come across one of these, they're great to have. Not required, of course, but they lay down ink really nicely. It's a brush tip marker. So that's also a possibility. Sharpie just doesn't lay down as nicely as some of the other markers, but it doesn't matter. These work just fine. All right, so you're gonna make 2 copies of each one of the designs that you chose before you move forward with filling in any spaces. So I wouldn't have done this first. I would have copied this a second time. If you're opposed to using the tracing paper, you can copy by hand, and I suggest making a grid to do that so that you have smaller quadrants to follow to say, okay, and I drew on tracing paper, so I wasn't drawing on my original. This line starts here, so I can come over here, and I've got it wrong to begin with. So I'm inside this corner. I can make a mark there, and I am a little less than halfway into this, which that's about right. I can also line up my pencil to give myself an idea, make sure I'm making that angle correctly. You can just eyeball it if you want. You can be even more specific and do fine measurements and come over and make the marks. I find tracing paper to be my friend. I don't like to do grids, but it is entirely up to you. Another way to copy things, unfortunately this would require you to tear out your originals from your sketchbook, but you could get a sheet of blank sketchbook paper and lay it on top of the design you want to copy and hang it in a window, and it works just like a light box, and you can trace it that way. All right, so something about your organic line stuff. I'm gonna put a semi-blank square over top of the one I have already done. And again, I made those letters where I want to fill in with black, but the organic lines are a little bit harder to follow because I did not make these with a template. Now, if you did, then that's great. You can lay your template down to make those marks. And again, I've got my square in lead, and as you're drawing organic lines, what you want to do is sort of have your eye just ahead of the tip of your pencil so that you sort of know where you're going before you get there. All right, and again, I feel like I just keep repeating myself, but very important for me to have that lead down first and then go in with a marker. And again, I'm trying to keep my eye just ahead of the tip of my marker so that I know where I'm going before I get there. All right, you're going to do 2 versions of your geometric, 2 versions of your organic, and 2 versions of whichever mixed design that you choose, changing up where you put black down and where you put white down. And I think that might be it. If you have questions or any issues, let me know.